Hi, I'm Isabel Waldbillig, and this is my oratory. How do sleepwalkers know that they sleepwalk? This is a question that many people don't find themselves asking, and a question that lots of sleepwalkers ask themselves once they realize. Since I was a young kid, from the ages of 5 to 8 or 9, I experienced night terrors. I would awaken without actually waking up and climb down my bunk bed ladder in my sleep to scream in my sister's face at the bottom bunk, or to walk into the corner, scream at the walls. I'd wander the house, opening and slamming doors, terrorizing my family, and I had no memory of any of this, especially not the nightmares when I woke up. I didn't understand or know about the trauma my body and mind were experiencing while I was unconscious, but subconsciously I dreaded going to bed every single night. I would fight my parents like a dog, just avoiding being put alone in my room because I did not want to go to sleep. I didn't know why, and it probably just seemed to any babysitter that ever experienced me that I was possessed, but especially fighting the babysitters to put me down for naps or bedtime, it caused a lot of issues. I did not want to sleep. And this progressed into insomnia. As a child, from 5 to 6, I developed insomnia, and I still am an insomniac because I didn't want to go to bed, even though I had no idea that anything was happening once my head hit the pillow. And the insomnia created other problems that followed. I became very, very, very creative in my own mind and imagination at thinking of ways to keep myself up, which was a double-edged sword because the later I stayed up, the more tired I was in the mornings, and the weirder the things had to be to keep my attention. I remember stargazing at the ceiling grooves, looking for gorillas and stars and whales in the patterns. I remember counting sheep to the hundreds at like 7 years old because I did not want to count the sheep until I fell asleep. But my body and mind decided that if I wasn't going to sleep, they weren't going to wait for me to sleep to cause issues. So from the night terrors to the delayed night terrors to the insomnia, I, on top of all this, developed sleep paralysis, which is a very special kind of demon. To any of those who have it, they know that it is one of the worst experiences, and I was 6. I remember every single night I would liken my bedtime to sending a sheep to the slaughter. My parents thought I was overdramatic, but at the same time, they knew to some degree that I didn't like the night terrors, even though they didn't know that I knew I had them. So I'm sure that that's what they thought the dramatics were about. Me avoiding sleep led to extremes, like my mother eventually having my bedtime at 6:30. I remember being elementary school aged, looking out my window which faced the front of the house, the yard, and the neighborhood. And all the neighborhood kids would be playing till their curfews at like 8 or 9 p.m. And I would just watch them because I wasn't going to sleep. I wasn't going to let myself fall asleep. I wouldn't do that to myself. I just watched. And so eventually there was a time where at daylight savings she just didn't switch the bedtime, and I went to bed at 5:30 for the rest of the year until the next switch. But it didn't matter because either way, every night, without fail, the night terrors came and the sleep paralysis came. And there's something to be said about sleep disorders that people without them do not understand, especially when you've grown up with them your whole life. Many children from the ages of 5 to 8 have night terrors. The sleep paralysis and insomnia are not quite as common, but it is something that you generally grow out of. So when you grow up with a sleep disorder, there are two things. First of all, you are asleep and do not know that you have a sleep disorder. Even if you knew what they were, you were too young to understand that it's what was happening to you. And second, you are an overly dramatic child and you assume that anything that's happening to you is happening to everyone else, because otherwise you're different and your worldview falls apart and nothing will ever be the same again. So every single night, I went to my room and my parents shut the door and turned on the sound machine and the humidifier and shut the blackout drapes, because there were as many things in there designed to get me to fall asleep and beat the insomnia as they could find. I would be given melatonin and I'm sent off to bed and I lay down and I stare at the ceiling for hours until eventually an evil figure joins you in the room, and I would feel it deep in my heart. I knew it was there without having to move a muscle, without having to turn my head, without having to open my eyes. I knew it was there. It became the air I breathed. I was heaving. I was sweating through my shirt. I wasn't moving a single muscle. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed with fear. You could see it in the corner, a dark figure, seemingly always nearing closer for hours on end. The humidifier became stifling. The sound machine became oppressive. Everything was too much, and yet I couldn't move to shut anything off. And it got closer. It was gaining ground between us. And that was every night until I fell asleep to restless dreams where I woke up and screamed at the walls. No matter how early I went to bed, I was never rested by the morning. I remember the most relatable memes are the videos where people run up the stairs. They're trying to beat to the top of the stairs, even though they turned off the light switch at the bottom, because they don't want the darkness to reach them. They're trying to get away from the darkness. And that's always been a very relatable thing to me, because when you wake up from sleep paralysis, when you're released from it, I would remember thinking, okay, on the count of 3, I will run to my bedroom door and I'll hit the light switch there. Then I run into the hallway and then I hit the light switch at the end of the hallway, and then I run halfway down the hallway and hit the light switch in the bathroom, and then I run to my parents' room and then I knock on the door because it's locked, because I came in every night when I wasn't even awake, and so I'd have to wait for them to come and unlock the door. And then I'd run into the bed after hitting the light switch at the door, and I would categorize where light switches were in every single part of my room. I would make an entire plan for the entire hallway, the entire layout of my home, every light switch I would hit, how fast I would have to be running, how I would turn each corner. I'd grab the handle or I'd grab the railing next to the stairs, especially when I moved my bedroom to the basement afterwards. It became an entirely new layout. I would have to hit the light switch at the edge of my door, open the door, run past the laundry room, which was just a dark, deep abyss, up the stairs, hit the light switch at the bottom of the stairs, hit the light switch at the top of the stairs, grab the railing, turn in the kitchen, run to the hallway, hit the light switch to the hallway, all the way down to my parents' room. Every single day that I went to bed, I experienced these things. I was the most annoying child, I'm sure, but it's horrifying. And so that brings me back to my first question. How do sleepwalkers know they sleepwalk? Well, for obvious reasons, I wasn't allowed to go on sleepovers until I grew out of the night terrors. So finally, when I was 12 years old, I went to my first sleepover that wasn't with a family member. It was with some of my friends who lived down the street. And in the morning, I was asked why I kicked my friend out of bed and onto the floor, and then stood up and walked to the bathroom, didn't open the door, and just stared at it. I was like, I have no idea. I didn't do any of that. I think you had a dream. And other girls there were like, no, you definitely did that. So after conversations with my family, who were shocked that I had no idea that I sleepwalked, even though I had never been told that I did, neurologists, my doctor, I finally found out. That is how sleepwalkers know they sleepwalk. Thank you.